right, one final example for section 8.4. So again, we're going to be comparing two different samples here in our population. So researchers from the Gallup poll interviewed two random samples of American adults. Both samples, one taken in January 2014 and one taken in January 2015, had 3,500 people. In January 2014, 1,575 respondents said they felt pretty good about the amount of money they had to spend. In January 2015, 1,715 respondents felt this way. Can we conclude that economic confidence has improved since 2014? Use a significance level of 5%. All right, so our population, our capital N, is going to be all American adults. All right, we're told to let P1 be our proportion in 2014. So there were 3,500 adults surveyed in 2014. Of those, 1,575 said they felt pretty good. Right. Our N2 is 3,500 adults in 2015. Right. According to the information up there, 1,715 divided by 3,500 gives us 0.49. Remember, our p hat is our average of our two different samples. So we're taking x1 plus x2 divided by n1 plus n2. So 1,575 plus 1,715 divided by 3,500 plus 3,500 gives us 3,290 over 7,000, which is 0.47. Our significance level, alpha equals 0.05. Our question that we were asked, can we conclude that economic confidence has improved since 2014? So we want to know, has confidence improved? All right, now this one is a little bit tricky because what that means, if confidence has improved, that means that P2 is greater than P1. Right? So what we have in 2015 was greater than 2014. But when we write our statements in our hypothesis test in StatCrunch and in our hypotheses, P1 should always come first. So that means if P2 is bigger than P1, if we flip that around, that's going to mean that P1 is less than P2. So again, slightly tricky here, just a little bit different with the greater than or less than. We need to make sure we have them going in the correct direction. All right, so our hypotheses, our null hypothesis is that P1 equals P2. And our alternative hypothesis that we just got from switching that other inequality around is that P1 is less than P2. All right, so now we're going to check our conditions. Our sample from 2014 is random and independent. Yes, that we're going to assume that that is true. We're going to take 3,500 times p hat, which is 0.47. Gives us 1645, which is clearly big enough. And then 3,500 times 1 minus 0.47 gives us 1,855, which is also big enough. Large population, all Americans, greater than equal to 10 times 3,500. Right, well, there's more than 35,000 Americans, so that condition also holds. So notice that we used our N1, our first sample size was 3,500, and then again we used that general p hat that we found for our average. Now, if we go to our conditions on the next page, N2 and N1 were the same, right? Our sample sizes were the same size. Our p hat is the same for both of these. So in this case, we are just going to mark all of these off. So we're going to say same as population 1. Because same sample size. Technically, I guess it should be same as sample 1. Because our sample size is the same. All right, so now we're going to go to StatCrunch. Again, as we go into StatCrunch, we're going to make sure we enter the observed value for a number of successes, enter our sample size for both of these, and then if we go through and we enter these values in, our z that we get is negative 3.35. Again, we don't change that 0 in StatCrunch. We're just going to make sure we have the correct inequality symbol. And our p-value that we get is 0.0004. Right, so if we compare 0.0004 to alpha, which is 0.05, our p-value is definitely smaller. That is going to tell us to reject our null hypothesis. So if we go back to our hypotheses, we're going to reject our null hypothesis, and our conclusion is going to be based off of our alternative hypothesis, that P1 is less than P2. Right? P1 being less than P2, remember, meant that the proportion of American adults with consumer confidence has increased. So our conclusion, we can conclude that the proportion of American adults with consumer confidence has increased. All right, so that's going to wrap up section 8.4, where we're using our hypothesis test to compare two different proportions.